Hey everyone, and welcome back. I am thrilled to welcome back our good friend Colin Smith from Photoshop Cafe. How are you doing, Colin?
Doing great. How are you? Hi, everyone.
Yeah, I'm really good. I just want to kick off by saying a huge thank you and note of gratitude on behalf of me and the team. We always love your sessions. You bring a ton of value. And so just thank you for being part of this event.
Well, thanks for having me. And it's always fun. I think this is my third session I'm doing with you guys. It's been a blast. Yeah.
You always just, pack a load of value into a relatively short space of time. So, what are you going to be sharing today? It's something a bit different, isn't it, from previous sessions?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So, inspired from the popular game Cyberpunk 2077 that everyone seems to be playing right now, I thought, why don't we build a composite? So we're just going to take a street scene and a few just different photos, and then we're going to mash them together and create a futuristic cyberpunk kind of a scene. So it's kind of like, if the 80s was in the future, the future as they saw it in the 80s. Lawlessness runs rampant. But the main thing really about this that I want people to take away is the lighting. So even though we're going to be doing the cyberpunk style, which is a very heavy pink and blue lighting, I want people to realize, even if you're not into cyberpunk, that this lighting, the principles of lighting work for any light. So this could be an artificial light, combined with the sunlight, or it could be a nighttime scene. And so you're going to learn a lot about how light affects things. And in fact, the cyberpunk thing is kind of nice because using the colored light, it actually indicates how the light's working. So it's actually an easy way for people to understand lighting. And lighting, as you guys know, is everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important. And I know you've touched on it in some of your previous sessions, absolutely. But I feel like this session is really leaning into lighting effects, and not just how you can create realistic lighting, but how you can use lighting to kind of leverage stunning visuals and really bring a piece to life, right?
Yeah. So we're definitely going to be bringing some of that futuristic holographic kind of stuff into this. So yeah, it's very sci-fi. Yeah. All right, let's get started. So you guys can see my screen right now. This is Photoshop, and right now I'm using Photoshop 2021, which is the current version of Photoshop. And it might look a little different to you because of this on the right-hand side. This is the color wheel, and it's so much more useful than just that block of color. And to get there, all you need to do is just go in the edge there, because you probably have this. So open the color panel from Window, and then you just hit this menu. They call it a hamburger menu. I have no idea. I would never eat a hamburger that looked like that. And then go down, and then you hit color wheel, and this gives you your color wheel. It just makes it easy to see your colors, but also complementary colors and stuff like that, which are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So it just makes it easy to make color decisions. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a image right now, and I've got Adobe Bridge open, so just you can see here, guys, these are the images I'm going to be using, except for the final. We're going to be making something sort of like that. And these are just free images I got from Unsplash and places like that, and we'll see what we can do about sharing those later. All right, so I'm going to start with the first image. I'm just going to drag it into Photoshop, and this is what we're going to start with. So essentially, we're going to take that and we're going to turn it into something like this. I say something like this because, no two ones ever end up the same, because we're doing a little bit of brush work, and, we might find ways to improve it along the way. All right, so this is kind of the scene. We've got a good start. It's kind of a dystopian kind of a city, kind of a shot there. These people don't really fit, so we definitely want to hide them because they're not cyberpunk. And we're just going to kind of work this inflatable thing, gas station thing, whatever you call it. I have no idea what it is, but I just think it's so cool for this kind of what we're going to be working on. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is we're just going to assemble the pieces. So I'm just going to drag them in. So I'm literally just dragging these. In fact, let me show you a quicker way to do that. So I can select multiple pictures here inside of Bridge. These are the ones that are going to go in. And I'm just going to drag those into the window inside of Photoshop. And then as I hit enter, it sequentially places them one after the other. So you don't have to drag these in one at a time. And the nice thing about it is, by default, these are going to be brought in as smart objects. Let me get rid of the library because I don't think we're going to be using that. And you can see here all the layers are just dropped in one on top of the other. And they're smart objects, so I can easily scale them. Great. That's a good start. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start off building a background. So this serves two purposes. One, it gives us a little bit more neon, a little bit more interest over in this area. I do like these air conditioning units are kind of crazy, but we want to also hide the people. So we're going to take this layer and just drag it over and then hit my favorite keyboard shortcut, which is Control T, which is Command T on Mac. And this gives me free transform. And then we can right click and choose to store it. Now with the store it, even though this isn't a smart object, I'm able to reshape this. And the nice thing about the smart object is if I mess it up, I can start again at any time because it's non-destructive. So what I'm doing is just matching the first area. And then what you're looking for to get perspective, it's really quite easy. All you're looking for is straight lines. So see on the curve there's a straight line, and I can see that corner is starting. So all I need to do is just match it there and just decide how wide do I want this. And then we go down on the other side, and then I'm looking for straight lines. So I want to follow that window line, not that cable. Watch things like that, because those are not necessarily following the true horizon, but windows always are. So I'm following the angle of the window. And in order to get the perspective right, all I want to do is make sure this is vertical, because my vertical lines are perfectly vertical. So I just want to make sure that that's vertical, following the same angle, and then bam, really, really easy to match the perspective. All right. Now, we're not even going to worry about blending it in yet. We're just putting things in position. The next thing is this kind of holographic thing that goes on the wall. This is going to give us a futuristic kind of a feel. Because in the future, you always have faces floating in space for some reason. And then I'm just going to do the same thing. And usually they're talking to you and telling you, what you bought on Amazon. Like,
I was just going to say.
I see you just bought, a toothbrush. Would you like some toothpaste to go with that? So, yeah, the dystopian future, right?
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that element of it.
I hate to break it to you, it's already here. All right, so we've got these, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to name them because it might be useful later on, just so I know what they are. And then we'll just call this one window. And I know everybody names their layers, right? The most common names that people use for layers are layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. All right, moving along. So I want to cut these guys out, and because they are definitely more cyberpunky. And it's really easy to cut things out now inside of Photoshop. All you need to do is go on the left hand, and we're going to choose either object or the quick selection tool. Doesn't matter which one, because these are going to enable the select subject. So if I choose select subject, Adobe's AI actually looks at this and says, hey, these are people, and we're going to cut it out there. Missed a little bit of the code. So the nice thing about the object selection is I can add that. If I hold down the shift key, I can add to that selection, and there we go. Now, if you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, use the magic wand or use the quick select, or whatever works. Now, I'll be honest, this is not perfect for, if we're doing print resolution and high resolution, you're going to want to pop into select and mask and just make sure you get those edges perfect. But for screen resolution, this is actually good enough. So I'm going to turn on the mask, and we've got a rough cutout. Not worried about positioning or size yet. Next thing we want is the car. So here's this really weird, kind of cool looking car, which is definitely a good future from the past kind of thing. And we're going to grab the object selection. We're going to do the same thing, select subject. Now it also grabs the Lamborghini or whatever that is there. I'm going to guess it's a Lambo. And I want to reduce that. So I'm going to use the Alt or the Option key to remove. So Shift key adds to the selection. The Alt or the Option key takes away from the selection. And this tool I'm using here, this object selection, is also using AI. So it's also detecting the edges and trying to figure out what it is.
So smart these days, what Photoshop can do.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. So I'm going to keep the shadow in, but I want to get rid of that little bit there. I want to definitely, and sometimes when you try to add it, it won't because, it's selecting those edges. So you can force it by using the regular tool, hit the plus, and then we're just grabbing that. So I want to just keep the shadow. And then we're just going to hit the cutout right there. Excellent. So let me just call this car. And we're going to call this people.
That's a very thin car. It looks like a doorstop.
Yeah, it's super cool. I would drive it. I don't know about you. I would definitely drive it.
So Thunderbirds vibes.
Right. So Control T or Command T once again for scaling. And then we're just going to scale this down. Now, don't look at the people for scale. Look at the rest of the scene. In fact, you know what I'm going to do just to help is I'm going to put that there roughly, and I'm going to go in and do the people. Let's scale the people. So Control T or Command T. And by the way, I just hit the eye icon to hide things. And for scale, I can use this dude in the background there. So, you know, bodies might be different sizes, but generally heads are not hugely different. You know, some people are a little big-headed like Jesus, but, you know, it's generally the same size. And I'm good friends with Jesus, that's why I'm ribbing him. So now that we got the size there, now we can go back to the car, and now we can get a better idea of how big the car should be based on the people. So I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, it should be a little bit bigger. And it should be just slightly bigger than what you think is a perspective, because the car is going to be in front of the people. But the car is not going to be in front of this weird blow-up thing. It's going to be behind there. So we're just positioning it here. Awesome. Now I want to just kind of hide the area that's going to go behind there. But if you notice, there's this is not layers. This is just a flat image, right? So what are we going to do? Okay, we need to get a selection around there. So we can grab our object selection once again, make a selection around here. And it's not working because I had the wrong layer selected. So we'll select whichever layer you're on, whether it's visible or not. And there we go. So now that selects the edge around there, which is great. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. And in fact, if we go back and turn the car layer on now, and I select the mask, all I need to do now is see how I'm using the selection from one layer on another layer. Let me save that selection too. I'm just going to save this selection. I'm just going to choose Save Selection, and we'll call it Blow Up, because I have no idea what this thing is. In fact, you know, for this crazy, you know, the way Cyberpunk is, this would be probably better if it was a rabbit or something, because you just see weird things like that in there. So I'm going to grab a brush here. Like Cyberpunk has all these flamingos everywhere. I don't know if any of you guys played it, but it's just so weird. And it's cool.
Is it a good game?
So I'm just
using good things.
I'm playing it on a console. I mean, the concept is amazing. It's super crashy, though.
Really?
And they've actually acknowledged that and even offering to give people their money back.
Wow.
So on the PC, apparently it works really well. On the console, it's still got a little bit of work, but I'm bearing through it and enjoying it. Okay, so let's put everything back on. So when we're building a composite, it doesn't matter what your composite is. You know, in this case, we're doing Cyberpunk. It could be anything. The first thing that I like to do is just get everything in place. Now, obviously, you know, we've got some overlays and stuff like that, but that's going to come later. We're just kind of building our scene and telling our story. You don't want to be doing, you know, perfect cutouts and color correction and all that at this point, because in all reality, you're going to move things around. You know, like when I was planning this, you know, I had, you know, the people were over here, and then I had them up front, and then, you know, finally I decided to, you know, put them back there. So you're going to move things around and shuffle them until you get the composition that you like. A lot of the time, I would probably crop this image right here and get rid of this power pole. But I'm going to keep it in here just for the sake of lighting, just so you guys can see a little bit more what we can do with it. Now, what I want to do is put a neon sign up here, because everything is looking good, but we just need a little more neon. And if I wanted to get rid of these windows, I could. It would actually be super easy. All I need to do is just go in here. Let me just make a duplicate of that, because I probably won't keep it, but I just want to show you guys. If we go up on here and then we go to Vanishing Point, Vanishing Point is this incredible tool that lets us work in three-dimensional space. What I do is if I click with here, I can define those planes, and a plane is just, you know, just a surface at an angle. And once again, I'm doing the same thing as before. Notice we want to go perfectly vertical, because those vertical lines are straight up and down 90 degrees, and I'm following the line of those windows. So you always want to be looking for things like window lines, curb lines, things like that are actually measured out. You know, when they build houses and buildings, they use levels. So those are true level areas. So what we want to do is, if I want to get rid of this, I'm going to grab the clone stamp tool. And with the clone stamp, if I hold down the Alt or the Option key, that would create a sample. And then all I need to do is just paint over here. See, if I want to get rid of that, it's as simple as that. we've got the little lines there, from the,
Mm-hmm.
to
Just a
not get
question.
those.
When you're doing
Yeah.
this, do you kind of sample paint and then go back and sample again and then paint, or do you just sample once and then keep painting?
Generally, let me undo this. If I was doing this for real, where I was sure I was going to keep it, I would actually resample, because what I would do is I would start here and I would do a smaller sample, and I would get down and I would resample, because what I don't want to do is get those power lines in there. So this is what I would do, in the real world, like this.
Got it. Yeah, I always struggled a bit with the clone stamp. Like, it's a great tool, but it can be a bit clunky. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I would.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd keep resampling, because you couldn't just suddenly paint with it. It seemed to kind of glitch a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just want to show guys, show people, that's kind of how it works. Let me undo some of this. Maybe what we'll do is we're going to do just a little bit here. So we're not going to do the whole thing. I'm going to do some of the windows. And notice I'm going over and I don't care. And that's because I've got the other layer. And once again, when I'm not doing a demo, or, not doing this as a, showing people how to do it, I would take my time and I would sample smaller and I would resample. And I could also play around with hardness, and I would probably put the heel on, and that will help it like blend in better. Like, look at this, if I put the heel on. See how those just blend in better now?
Mm-hmm.
See that? So if you're worried about the inconsistency of the color, you can do that. But the reason I started and now I'm healing is because sometimes if you do this and you try to heal when you do it, some of the stuff, see, it shows the colors underneath. So I kind of patched it with the new color and then started just healing the edges. So when I do that, that's how I do it. I just kind of cover the area, then I go back and then get rid of the lines and everything and do it like that. But this is going to be good enough for what we want. So I'm going to click OK. Now, because we've got 2 layers of this, I can easily create a layer mask. And now I can just clean it up using the selection tools. So I can use the polygonal lasso tool. I have all kinds of jokes about that, but I won't make them here. And I'm going to go there. And I just want to fill this with black. And then Control D, and see that gives us a nice straight edge. If it's not enough, which it's not, let me grab a brush. We'll use a hot edge brush. I'm laboring a little bit on this, and I just want to let you guys know that the goal today is to go more for concept than perfection, just so you understand, because otherwise, we could spend, a lot of time trying to get, one little area perfect. And when I'm doing this in the real world, I will spend a lot more time, on the little details, which we're not going to do today, because I just want you guys to understand the workflow and the concept, because to get this perfect, all you're doing is just doing what I did, but you're just doing it over and over again. Great. All right, so we're getting there. We've got our, I want to put our neon in now. So in order to get the neon, the first thing you need is a font. And I grabbed these fonts here from Design Cuts. And this is the, what was this from? This was from the Ultimate Neon Kit, which comes with some layer styles and fonts and the different pieces. The cool thing about this is it actually comes with all the little brackets and all those things that you can use to really make it look realistic. Today, I'm not going to put any of the brackets and the wires and all that stuff, but that all comes in the kit. But we're not going to do that today, because this is the future and things float in the air and they don't need wires, because everything is...
Where we're going, we don't need wires.
All right, so we're going to put that up there. And now what I want to do is I want to reshape it so it fits. But one of the things you might have noticed, if you go in here, the distort is not available, right? So what would you do? You would rasterize the font. Normally you'd right click and rasterize. But the problem is, if you want to change that later, you're stuck. So the way to do that is to right click on here, and we're going to convert it to a smart object. So you just right click and then you look for where it says to convert to smart object. Now I can double click. I can Control T and right click, and notice distort's now available. So this is how I can do it without being destructive, because non-destructive is the way you want to be in Photoshop, because then you have the ability to go back and change whatever you want, whenever you want. All right, so I'm doing the same thing. In fact, why don't I just do this here just to help me? use guides. Don't be afraid to use what's in the picture to help you, because all artists do that. Like, people think, oh, they just see perspective and they just, they magically know everything. And no, everyone cheats. It's not really cheating.
The greatest analog artists of all time, right? They have their guides.
Yeah. And now the reason I did it like that is, because if I rasterize it as a type and I decided later I didn't want it to be hotel, I could go in here and I could change it to motel or whatever I want. See that? So when I double click on the smart object, see it's still a font. So I can type in other things. I could duplicate it. I mean, if I wanted to reuse this, I could go in and actually I wouldn't want to do it that way. I'd want to right click and then duplicate. But you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. I just want to let you guys know you could do that. So if you wanted to reuse the sign, just make a duplicate of it, go into the smart object, change the wording. So you could have hotel, you could have parking, you could do whatever you wanted and just reuse it so you don't have to keep doing it over and over again. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to give this a neon look. And I know exactly how to do it. You just go into layer styles and you add an inner glow and an outer glow, and then you make sure they're all perfect, and then select the right color and make sure you use the right blend mode and all that stuff. Or you could just go into styles, and I'm just going to click on styles twice so they appear, and that's because they're on my second monitor. And then let me you know what I'm going to do? One of the things that I do very often is I go in here and I just reset my workspace because it gets messy. There we go. And now we're going to go under styles. Boop, there it is. And if we look under these styles here, you'll notice that I grabbed some of these from Design Kits. I've got the neon styles, which is a different pack altogether, which has some really cool neons. But these are the ones that come with the neon kit that we got. And I can just start to click on these and see it just instantly does all that for me. So, it's not that I don't know how to do this. I do. But, when you're working and, especially if you're doing this for a living, I could spend, a good 15, 20 minutes trying to get this right. Or I could just click on that. And for me on a job, that just paid for itself already. Mm-hmm. But I do like some of the other ones in this other pack. If you look in here, see, these are nice. So the neon styles are kind of nice. So I'm going to use that one because that's pretty much getting me there. And then, yes, I could add all the wires and do all that fun stuff, which, on a real image, if I was going to use this for commercial work or whatever, I would go in there and I would spend a little bit of time doing that. But one thing that is bugging me is I'm seeing that that's not quite right. Oh, why did I hit warp? Let me hit that again. Right click and I would hit that distort because I'm just noticing. And as much as I said things don't come instinctively, perspective is one of those weird things that does for me. Like I see perspective and when it's not right, it just glares at me. All right, so let's go with this face. We're going to change this face now. We'll use a layer blending mode. And we want something that's going to lighten it up. So we can go into like a screen mode. Notice I didn't have to get rid of those black edges because the layer blending mode will do that for me. And it's got a sharp edge. I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to apply a layer mask. And then I'm just going to grab black. And as I've mentioned to you guys before, the way to remember a layer mask is, well, the easy way is when you first apply it, it's white. And it doesn't have any effect. So white has no effect on that layer, right? So black would be the opposite of white, which will do the other thing, which is get rid of it. So if we go in here, select there, make sure we've got a black brush. And I'm going to make it really huge so I can just use the edge. And that's not working. It's a hard edge brush. Let's go up under the brushes. Make hardness all the way down. And now, see, we can just gently blend that in. There we go. That's better. Nice. All right. So you definitely want to get rid of things like that, like the hard edges. Okay. So there's other things that are going on here. We've got some issues with the contrast. There's too much contrast in here right now. And the colors clearly. So you know what it is? We're going to now bring in, this is going to really transform the entire image right now. We're going to go in and we're going to apply a Cyberpunk coloring. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to select everything first and then hit Control G to put it into a group. And you also have to unlock the background if you want to do that. So Control G, and we're just going to call this our scene. So everything in the background behind the people in the car would be considered our plate or a background plate. And in the scene is everything in the scene, the objects. We haven't done the lighting or the coloring, but now we're going to do that. So I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call this coloring. And the reason I'm putting these in groups is so I can easily isolate the different things if I need to. So I'm going to apply a layer, and I'm going to call this blue. And Control J will copy it, and then we're going to call this one pink. Punk. All right, so we got the colors there. And see how nice and organized I am? I'm always perfectly organized.
I'm very impressed by it.
I'm actually kind of semi-joking. I am organized, though. When it comes to main things like groups and stuff, I always do that. I don't always name my layers. Okay, I'll be honest. All right, so we've got some pink going here. So why don't we have the pink coming from the left, and then we're going to have the blue coming from the right. So all we're going to do is just grab that gradient. And before I apply it, let me tell you what I'm doing. Let me go into the color here. And I know I'm moving a little faster this week than I normally do because there's a lot more steps in this week's particular one.
Yeah, it's quite a full piece.
Yeah, so we've got some blue here, and I'm just going to click OK. And then under the gradient, I'm making sure I use a linear gradient. And then what I'm choosing is foreground to transparent, so that way I'm not trying to blend two colors. And then all I do is click and drag, and when I release, it puts blue on that side. See how it's already starting to look like what we want? Now we're going to choose the pink. And, I could be really good. Here's something I always think of doing and I never do, which is they tell you to do. I don't know who they are. I guess I'm they. I'm telling you to do it. The mysterious they. There is no they. So I'm go here, and I'm going to say, hey, there's this color swatch. That's our blue. All right, so let's get a pink. And you could call it magenta if you wanted, or fuchsia, or I'm just going to call it pink because that's what common people call it, and I'm pretty common. So let's make that pink, and then we're going to hide that, and let's go into the pink here, and now we're going to do our gradient. So we're going to apply it out from the other side. So boom, now we're starting to get somewhere, and I'll just call this palette. PAL for palettes. No, that's what that is. So this way, when I try to go and choose between blue and pink, I'm always, I don't have to always do it. I'm not constantly going back. Now, I could set the foreground and background color to pink and blue. So we've got pink there for the foreground. And then I believe if I hold down the Option key, and nope, not the Option. It must be the Control key, maybe. Let me see. Command key. Whatever it is. I don't remember. There's a modifier that you can use. I think it might be Command that sets the background color.
Yeah.
I'm not going to figure that out. It's one of those modifiers.
It's one of those you kind of muscle memory it, and then if you forget it, you need to look it up again.
All right, so what we want to do to make these blend in is we've got to give them some color here. So we could go into some blend modes here, lighten and screen. It's kind of looking interesting. Now, I could do this individually by layer, which is what we're looking at here. See how that really changes the way it looks, which is not bad. I'm going to go for a low-key kind of settled. I like how the soft light is applying that right now. We might go a little bit more, later, but let's do the same here. So soft light is essentially giving us the color hue, but it's not giving us that atmosphere just yet. We'll add that. We'll get there with that. So this is good. We're getting there with our color hues. Now we want to start to apply them to our images. So the first thing I want to do is I want to grab this one here of the window, and because that's not quite what we want, so I'm going to grab a hue saturation. So let's just grab our hue saturation, and I always tell people never to use this to lower contrast. But in this case, I want to. Notice it's affecting the whole image. If you click this little arrow key here, it will just affect that layer. And all I'm doing is I'm just trying to just blend that in a little better. Doesn't have to be perfect yet. And I'm bringing the saturation down. So using less of the color of the object and allowing more of the ambient color, which is those gradients I applied, to start to come through. All right, so let's do the same thing on the people. Now, usually I use curves to do that, but in this case, I'm just going to use hue saturation And that's just because I also want to reduce the saturation. And once again, we're going to clip that to the people. There we go. Whoops, I've got the wrong layer. I love it when I do that. That's the face. That's why I named it. And it's easy. You just drag it above if you want to change it. Alt or the Option key will clip that. There we go. All right, so see if I go to black and white. We don't want that, but you don't have too much color when you're implying a lot of this, you know, because if you look at a night scene, it's very desaturated. And then a lot of the color is going to be coming from the lighting in the scene, which is the whole thing we're going for here. And I'm going to increase the lightness a little bit just to kind of get them to blend in a little bit better. Getting closer. Let's do the car. Same thing. Let's go here. We're going to do it here. In fact, if I want to duplicate this and I don't want to have to redo it, all I need to do is just drag that out. And I'm holding down the Alt key or be the Option key and release that. And then it copies that layer style. And then I'm clipping it. So what I did is I just copied that with its settings from the people onto the car. So I didn't have to create it from scratch. But I'm definitely going to reduce the saturation more. And this one I'm going to hit colorize because I want to put a little bit of a blue tint into this car now.
Oh, that looks like a nicer paint job.
It looks like a what?
A nicer paint job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it's starting to come together, right? As far as the color. And let me just do a little bit on the lightness. Nah, I'm not going to do too much on that because the shadows get too light. Let me use curves for this. Let me get my curves. So I want to line up the midtones a little bit, but I want to keep those shadows nice and dark. So I'll clip it again. And let's see what we've got there. There's the car before and after. Yeah, see what it's doing? All right, so we're starting to blend things in. Now we want to start doing, you know, some color. And this is where things are really going to start to happen. So let me just collapse all these little things that I've got open like that, the effects. And I'm just going to drag my layer style, my layers panel to the side here, just to make it easy for you guys to see what I'm doing. Because it's up high and near the photo. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And if I hit the F key once, this takes me into full screen mode. The first full screen. There's a second one, which will go completely full screen. But notice that allows me to move the picture out of the way. So I can, if I hit the space bar, I can move my picture anywhere on the screen. And this enables me to have a panel on here on the left and this there. All right, great. So what we want to do now is we want to start applying some of this color. And I'm going to do it pretty quickly. So I'm going to turn on my palette so we can see. So we're looking at the objects. So why don't we start with the first thing we're going to do is this object in the background, this blow up thing. And there's different ways we can do this color, by the way. I can put the color on a layer above everything, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go above this. And we're going to create a new pink layer. So what I'm going to do is grab the brush. And I want to grab that pink, Alt or the Option key, click on there from our palette. And now we've got the pink. Awesome. That's what we want. Now we want to get the selection on that area. Remember we saved that selection earlier? So if we choose Select, we can just choose Load Selection. And I have no idea what that is, but blow up. Remember, that's what we named it. Click OK. And now we'll go to selection. So when you make your selections and you want to use them again, save them. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start to paint because we're going to have the pink come from the left and it's going to strike the surfaces that are pointing towards it. So we're going to get a little bit of a rim and maybe a little bit of a wraparound. Okay, so let me make this brush really big. And what I want to do is just kiss it because I want to give it just that wraparound light first. So we want to work with the brush. If you're using a Wacom tablet, hit the brush settings here. This will open up the brush settings. Transfer, which is opacity, you want to set that to pen pressure. If you're using a mouse, just use it really low. Just set it to, don't worry about that. Just use a very low setting in the opacity and flow. In our case, we're going to do, I'm going to take this flow down really low. Everything happens in flow. I don't know if you guys have been using it, but everything above 10% is pointless. Everything happens in the 0 to 10%.
Why? Because you lose all control and subtlety above 10%?
Yeah. So if I put this, say, at 11% and I paint, of course, it's going to make a liar out of me right now. Generally speaking, nothing's happening. I have to go to selection to possibly.
Active selection on that.
With it. Yeah. So see if I go here, that's just like, and that's at 11%. It's not really doing much, right? So it's all in the pen pressure. But now if I take it down to like 4%, notice how much more subtle it is.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was going full force. And so that's actually what I wanted. So I want to just be more subtle and just wrapping around and see how we're just kissing that edge there. That's nice. Now let's take a flow up. So anything above 10, you may as well be at 100. It doesn't work that different. And I'm going to make the brush smaller using the left bracket key. And we're just going to paint a rim around here. So this is the light that's coming very close. And to draw this down, hold the shift key and then tap in order to draw a straight line between the two lines. And then Control D. See what we're doing now is we're starting to create lighting. Now the scene is going to start to come alive. And let's do the same thing with this power pole. I don't know how I was going to select it, but let's give it a shot. Not bad.
Pretty good.
And grab the brush, and I'm going to create make sure I'm painting on the right layer. So this is the trick. You've got to remember to go make sure you're using the right layer to paint, which is why I put them in the coloring layer, and the right layer to work in the selections. So always go between those. So I'm just sketching this. And once again, when I'm doing this in the real world, I'll take more time, but I just want to just quickly show you guys how this works. And see how it's starting to come together. Now we could, play around with different things. Like we could try different blending modes. Maybe the lighting mode looks kind of nice. Or, color dodge, overlay. So we're just kind of going through those different blending modes, trying to find something that looks nice. Now it's obviously too much at the front, so you could take the opacity down a little bit and see how we can just start to blend it in. Now, generally speaking, I would probably create a new coloring layer for something forward like this, because you might want to control the opacity on that separately. So let's just create another layer, and we're going to do the car. So select the Control, tap for the car, and that gives us a selection from the car. Awesome. And we're on our own layer for this. So I know this light is going to come this way. So once again, I'm just creating that light. And notice how the car is kind of bent, so that top area might be pointing up towards, how this slopes away and the other one slopes up towards the light. So you might use that as an area to add some light. And I'm going to paint this car on its own, so we can just adjust the colors. So maybe, that's not good. And you're just going to kind of get a little bit of that coming in here. I'm not worried about it being overdone at the moment, because we can fix that later. So I'm just kind of picking up areas like that and little thin areas that would, perhaps be getting a little bit of that. Those surfaces would be catching that light. So any surface like that kind of sticks out or goes in is going to have an edge that's going to catch that. Now I'm doing this very roughly. But see what it's doing? It's slowly starting to build a dimension. And I'm not trying to get it perfect. I'm just trying to just get it rough enough. And this is going to give us that little rim around there. And I probably should have used this really small brush here for around the rims, because it's catching the light. Anything that's pointing towards our object is going to start to catch that color light. And now what we're going to do is do the other side of the car, where we're going to be picking up the blue. So let's go nice and big. And so we're going to have a blue light coming from here. We haven't, added our ambient light yet. We've just kind of added, the color. So we've got the blue starting to come from here. Don't worry if it looks too much right now, because we're going to adjust the opacity and blending modes and stuff later. And then we're going to go down here, and it's going to do the exact opposite. So now we want these surfaces that are pointing this way to pick up some of this color. The rims maybe, oops. And this is the stuff that, when I'm not doing it as showing people as a tutorial, I will take a lot more time with this. So please be forgiving. All right. So when it comes to that, we're there. And now let's look at some of our lighting. So we could go into these blending modes. What do you guys like? Lighten, screen, or we could go to overlay, soft light?
So my favorites are always overlay and soft light.
All right. So see how we're starting to get the color now starting to come onto that car? Starting to get that color. And then it's pretty much the same for everything, so we could do the people. I'm just going to do this like really quick. So I'm just going to Control click, get that selection. There's our people. Once again, create a new layer. And I would name these car, color or whatever, but we're not doing that today. And we're just going to go here, and just for time, because I'm probably trying to jam a 2-hour tutorial here into an hour.
I appreciate it that you've covered so much already.
And I'm just putting the blues here. So this is the stuff that's facing it. And notice I'm not really worried about getting it perfect right now. I just want to get the color there. And I'm looking at, what maybe a little light comes off there. But you can get away with so much once you start, once you use the blending mode and opacity, it's amazing what you can get away with. Okay, so then we're going to switch around to the pink. And I got to be honest, maybe I did this too, because I love doing this kind of stuff. Normally I'm just doing this with sunlight and shadow, in photos and stuff. But you're doing any kind of compositing or whatever. This is what makes the difference.
It's fun.
So
it's really fun.
It is fun. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so that looks awful. Now we'll change the blend mode and it'll look nice. There we go, soft light. Yeah, see now it's starting to just add a little light. I'm probably being a little subtle on this light, to be honest. Let me go to screen and bring that down a little bit. There we go. All right, so we're starting to, just kind of colorize the elements, but what's really going to make this pop is when we start to add the atmosphere, which we haven't done yet. We haven't even, touched on that yet.
This is the really fun part.
Yeah, so we're going to do that right now. Okay, so we're going to call this Atmo, and we'll call it atmosphere. Well, hang on, let's create a group. Call it Atmo. And this is, we're going to put all the stuff on top. So let's hide our coloring. Let's get our scene. But let's just have just before we move on, let's see what we've done so far. Here's our coloring. See before and after. So you might not realize how much you're doing until you start to look at the before and after. And then you're like, wow, okay, I've actually done more than I realized. So you can see that. And if we go to the beginning, this is what we started with. And so, we're making some good progress. Okay, now the atmosphere. This is the fun stuff. So what I want to do is I'm going to bring a couple of overlays in, and then we're just going to do some brush work to just kind of finish it off. So I'm going to open up Bridge, and in Bridge here, I've got some ones I grabbed here from the Lights bundle. Now there's only 3 in there, but the pack comes with 525 of them, and these are the 3 that I chose to use.
Colin, we chatted about this pack a little while back. I was really intrigued to see how you used it, and I love what you did with it.
Oh, cool. Thanks. So we're going to make this nice and big. So what I'm going to do about this big because I want to do more. So one of the things you'll notice in Cyberpunk, futuristic, Blade Runner, whatever you want to call it, is, because, Fifth Element, all of that, it's dirty, it's grungy. So the air should be full of sparks and, the electricity, nothing's working, right? So you could cut this out using selection tools, but I would prefer to just use a blending mode. And if you use these top blending modes here, notice that these ones only show black. The next ones only show the color. So they hide black. So I'm looking here, lighten or screen. We could go either way. I'm kind of liking lighten on this particular one. And let's make a copy of it. Alt or the Option key will drag out a copy. And let's make this one bigger. Flip it first. Flip horizontal. And I'm going to do this just so and then I'm going to drag it out, and then I'm going to pull that up. So you don't know it's the same one now. See that?
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
If you're using the same thing over and over again, just try to vary it a little bit so it doesn't look the same. And see what we're doing now. We're getting just stuff in the air. We're getting little sparks, atmosphere. And this is starting to, fit our scene a little bit better, I think. So let's go in here and let's add a little bit more. I kind of like this one. It's kind of fun. It's like a bokeh. I'm going to flip this one vertical because there's more going on at the top. And once again, let's do the same thing we did before. Use the layer blend mode, and we're going to go into maybe screen.
That looks so cool.
Now I'm going to bring the opacity down because it's, I want to make it more subtle. And I don't want it in the foreground here. I mean, this could be anything. It could be snow, could be rain, could be, whatever, because it's catching the bokeh. But it's obviously some kind of light or liquid that's coming. So maybe it's, some kind of poison gas or whatever they have in the future. And I'm going to go here and we'll go larger, because the air is usually not breathable and they would be wearing gas masks. But they've adapted So they've already evolved. That's the fun thing, right? When it comes to sci-fi, you can make up anything. Yeah, what's that?
Exactly. I was going to say with lighting overlays like this, I love combining them exactly how you are, because they're beautiful on their own. But when you start layering them up, it can get really rich and, create these kind of atmospheres.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it just kind of adds that little finishing touch, to your image. It just gives it that little bit of magic. I agree. So I'm just playing around here. I'm thinking screen. If you notice that like lighten is going to hide more, screen shows it. So screen will show you the whole thing. But sometimes you choose lighten. Screen is not necessarily always the right choice. But I just kind of like this. It doesn't make any sense, but it just looks cool. And I think, but that's what compositing is about. So you could say, once again, it's sci-fi, so I could make it up. It's the 6G, that does this. Whatever. All right, so let's have a look, and I'm gonna hit here. I probably shouldn't say that. There's British people watching this. So what I'm doing here, I'm just making fun of the conspiracy theories. So what I'm doing is I'm just applying the color. So if the color here wasn't the exact color I wanted, I could just go in and do what I did, hue saturation. So there's the original color. There's the pink if I want more of those pinks. And I think I like the pink. What do you think, Tom? What do you like? The
pretty nice. Yeah, it makes sense because the pink's coming in from that side anyway.
So now it starts to make it look like this is part of the hologram, maybe, that this person is on. So now they start to look more holographic and not like they're stuck on the wall anymore. It's kind of, that's what my imagination tells me anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and, and that's the fun thing about this that I absolutely love about compositing is your imagination can just get carried away, and it's so much fun. So I'm going to do another series of gradients now. I'm going to put these over the top, and this time I'm just going to keep them in the regular mode, and I'm just going to bring down opacity. And see what it does is it starts to give it atmosphere. So we're getting the color, but we're also getting haze and atmosphere, which is exactly what I want. And let's go create another layer. We're going to do it with the blue, and this just really will bring it together. And I'll show you. We're going to do some stuff with brushing in a second too. It's going to do the same thing, and it's just so simple. And we're just going to bring this across the side here, doing the same thing, bringing it down now. Once again, you could go into blending mode, but I want this atmosphere. See, if I look at before and then after, see how it starts to just give it that atmosphere, that that magic, like this depth, haze. Because nothing is clean in this world. This is a very dirty, dystopian kind of a future. So I'm going to create a new layer now. And now I'm just going to go with my brush. And I'm going to go with the low flow. And I'm going to start to add some of this color. So I know I've got some of that blue there. So I just want to add some blue. And if it's too much, it's fine. We can drop it back later. But see what I'm doing? Where there's light, we're starting to get it. And this will, it's just amazing how this works. It's something people would not think of a lot of the time, just painting over your painting. But it gets a great result. So I'm going to do that, hide that, and and see. And this is what, if you look at and you see when it's raining or phase, what do you call it, foggy, hazy, and I want some pink here because it's too much of that one color. Maybe a little of the pink goes on there. And once again, that's maybe a little much. And look at this. And this is working at 8% flow. Let me bring it even lower. So this flow, all the magic happens at that end. And a little bit there. And, essentially, we're pretty much done here. Now I just want to mention, there's a couple of things I might do differently. Like I think the contrast is a little high on the car. I would go in here maybe and do a little tweaking. Let me go into the hue saturation, and let's see what happens if I add that colorize. Just want to kind of see what happens on there. Am I on? There we go. Now it's kicking in. Yeah, I like where the car is there, but I'm not liking the ground. So what I would do there is just on that mask is just paint, just play around with that mask on the smart object, the hue saturation right there. So if I wanted to hide it a little bit so the more contrast on the ground, see what I'm doing here is I'm just painting with black. Let me just turn it all the way up so you guys can see. So that grounds the shadow a little bit more while allowing it to be hazy at the top. But, once again, this was a tutorial. If I was doing this, as an actual project, I'd probably spend 2 or 3 times as much time on this because, there's obviously mistakes. But hopefully you guys get the idea of, the workflow and everything and how all that comes together.
That was incredible. Thank you so much, Colin. And you're right. I think that's very much a kind of 2-hour demo that you've somehow crammed into an hour and packed in so many tips. But that was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's a wallpaper waiting to happen. That'd be a pretty nice background.
Yeah, if anybody wants it, I'll upload it on the social medias. So it'll be on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Photoshop Cafe. So if you guys want to grab it as a wallpaper or whatever, go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We always love your sessions. Thank you for being so generous again with your time. And we just appreciate you a ton. So thanks, Colin. That was great.
All right. Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.